What exactly is the difference between guilt and shame? Well, why don't we talk about that? Alrighty, before I dive into this episode, I just wanted to make sure that I said this as a reminder that I'm not a therapist. I am simply trying to relay these tools that I learned that helped me with my own mental health. Guilt versus shame has to do with emotional regulation, and I'm going to dive more into what that is, but the reason why I'm talking about this and making it its own video is this is something that when I figured out what it was, I realized that it was a huge thing that was going on in my head that I didn't even comprehend was part of it. Here's the gist of it. Guilt is something that you feel shame for that is justified, whereas shame are unjustified I am statements. So for instance, a justified thing that you might feel guilty for is if you woke up and you're grumpy and you just shout at your friend because you were in a mood. You might later on, like 20 minutes down the road when you've like woken up more and you've realized, oh my gosh, I just shouted at my friend and they didn't deserve their treatment because all they did was try to wake me up so I could get to work on time. That was such a great thing for my friend to do for me. I should have appreciated it and not shouted at them. That is a justified thought. Whereas shame would be if that same friend woke you up by pouring a cold bucket of water over you and then laughed like it was a prank, and then you started making I am statements. Oh, I must be a terrible friend. Why? Because why else would my friend pour a bucket of water over me and think that that's funny? Now, I'm not talking about all pranks. This is just an example. Don't come for me if you like pranks. That's not what this is about. It was just the simplest example that doesn't dive into more hardcore things closer to trauma, because I'm trying to avoid triggering trauma things, and like pranks are the easiest thing for me to give an example. When I started breaking down like what my thoughts were, like, oh, I have these thoughts, but are they actually guilt thoughts or are they shame? Like for instance, I've talked about like my whole like mother situation, and I pretty much feel like my mother doesn't acknowledge that I exist. This is shame. And so I was like, oh, I must be a terrible son because if my mom cared for me, she would reach out and make sure that I was alive more than one time in a 10-month period. That's a shame statement because like whatever my mom does, it's on her. It's not on me, it's not on you guys, it's on her. And so me saying I am a terrible son just because she treats me that way is not justified, because she doesn't have a right to treat me that way. Golden rule, treat other people how you want to be treated. So if I turned around and treated my mom the same way, that would make me feel guilty because that has to do with my values. Like if I want to treat other people how I want to be treated, even if my mom is being terrible, if I want my mother to eventually treat me how she should treat me, then I shouldn't take on her behavior to try to equalize our family dynamic. Realize that shame, which is why I told you in a previous video that I named my shame Sheldon, it's something I've had like since I was an early age. I was taught to be ashamed of myself. So I'm 26 and I honestly don't feel like I know who I am because I was taught by my family, by school, by like society, by everyone that it was not okay to be me. It was I should just hide. I should not try to be seen. It's better if I sit in the corner in the shadows where like we acknowledge in the peripheral that I exist, but I don't matter, so I'm just something gross. And these are shame thoughts. Nobody, like people have like said mean things to me, but this is what's happening in my brain. But like currently I'm 26 and these things aren't still happening, but that's like the trauma of shame. It goes back to like when I'm like 6, even younger than that, but like I've been carrying it around and I didn't realize it was a shame statement. I was taking it on like it was justified, like I was feeling guilty because I'm like, wow, I must be such a terrible person to all these people because they feel like they have the right to treat me this way, and if everyone treats me this way, then I must be in the wrong, so they must be justified because if it was just one person, they'd be wrong, but it seems like it's everyone. And that's the way your brain can trick you sometimes. Your brain can be a little feisty devil. It wants to seek out things in your life to justify your unhealthy opinions about yourself, and that's something that I realized because I dived further into like my shame, and like, well, today's not a great example because I'm wearing a dark t-shirt, but like when I started therapy, I was like, well, why do I wear dark clothes? Why do I wear the same clothes quite frequently? And like people are like, well, you're comfortable, you like wearing that stuff. And like if you're comfortable in your clothes and it makes you feel good, then that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is like, I know that I intentionally eventually decided to just intentionally seek out dark clothing so I could mend into the wall, be invisible and not be seen, which doesn't make no sense because I want to be an actor. So I know in my head that I want to be seen, even though in my, you know, trauma, like depressive state, I don't want to be seen. And you see, those things don't mix well together. Like you can't be putting yourself on YouTube if you don't want to be seen. It's kind of countered the point. So I was like, bruh, what's going on? Like, why do you feel like you need to be invisible? And then I was like, well, I don't know. I just have always been like told that I should be invisible. And like, well, told by who? And then I was like, well, here's Sheldon coming out of that void I told you guys about. And he was like, by me. And like basically by me means all the people who've ever told me that. So they're now like a cloud of voices is trying to remind me of like historical things that have been said to me that are no longer a part of the present situation. And that's shame. And the reason you can tell the difference between guilt and shame is a guilt statement is usually like, I feel like it's such as I feel like, oh, I feel so bad because I screamed at you when you woke me up, and I realized you were doing that because you're holding me a favor. So please accept my apology, and I will try to be better if you ever do that for me because you don't deserve to be shouted at. Whereas if I'm like, that's a guilty justified statement. Whereas shame is more like, oh, I am a terrible person. Like I deserve to be like, I deserve to be completely wet. No wonder they threw a bucket. Like, what right do I have to be dry? Like, you know, it's like you're not blaming the other person who did this awful thing to you. You're blaming yourself. That's kind of like, but those are like I am statements. I am not worthy. I am a terrible person. I don't deserve love. Like, no, like those are shame statements. And so like and that's why I wanted to like put this video out there, mostly because I wanted you guys to like start noticing, like when you start going into your depressive, or sometimes it can be tied to anxiety. When you go to those states, are you going into those states because of justified things that, like in the present moment, or because of like something in your past that you're like, I must be a terrible person. Now in this present moment, sometimes you can do something really horrible and feel that way, but like it has to be present, like it's current situations. Don't be like, I must be a terrible person, because remember that one guy like 15 years ago who like, I did this something on accident and they told me this, that I sucked. And I'm like, he's right, I do suck. So I'm so glad that I still remember that you told me I sucked. Like, it's like your brain's seeking out like these clues to justify an unjustified thought. You see what I mean? Like, that's shame, guilt. Like, if we all have our morals. If you do something against your morals and you start feeling like you're no longer okay with being yourself because you've done something completely outside your values, and that's why you're apologizing, or that's where your thoughts are coming from, those are like, if it's part of your value core set of beliefs, those are more along the lines of guilty, so they're valid. So it's okay to apologize if you feel guilty about something. I'm not saying don't apologize. What I'm saying is, if you apologize, make sure you should actually be apologizing, and don't just assume because someone tells you you're a fat ass that you're a fat ass because they said it, you know? I understand people have an opinion, but I'm sorry, but if I don't go outside because you don't like seeing my fat ass, then I'm never going to have a happy life because I'll always be inside and I'll be invisible. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but if you want me to move my fat ass and get a small ass, then I kind of have to go outside and exercise, so back off, okay? That was a lot of asses, I'm sorry. But that's like kind of the example, and I know it's like extreme and like weird, but I'm trying, what I like doing in this video is like shame versus guilt, but also like putting in my own head. And so that's also why I've encouraged you guys to comment, because it would be so much easier if I could be like, oh, like you have like these own thoughts about yourself. And then I'm like, well, I can understand that. And then like help you. Cause sometimes you have to like be able to say something out loud to recognize that it's a shame statement versus, a guilt statement, because like your body is trained from your trauma to accept something as accurate when it's not accurate. people don't have a right to treat you a certain way just because they think they can. No, it's do unto others that you would want to do to, like, it's treat others the way you want to be treated. So if somebody's treating you badly, they have no right to demand you treat them well. If they want to be treated well, they need to treat you well so you'll treat them well back. That is the only way you will ever be able to show up for yourself. But like I said, your trauma blinds you, and until your body's open and receptive to hearing it, it's harder to know what's valid and what's not valid. And that's it for this video, you guys. Give us a thumbs up if you want other people to find this message. Like I said, I saw Wrong Goes Wrong yesterday, and it really relit this fire in my head because like I said, I was going through my own I am statements about doing this because I was starting to follow the road back to validation, and that's not why I did the 30-day challenge. I was doing it, well, obviously because I was watching a YouTube channel like grower thing, but I was doing it because I wanted to find myself, and by finding myself and like getting some feedback with what you guys liked, I would be able to do more of a balance between trying to give you guys what you want as well as promoting things that I enjoy and I feel like will make the world better. And so if you guys give this video a thumbs up, I'm hoping somebody else will find this and be helpful. And then as always, you guys can subscribe, and we only have, I think, 9 days left. Yeah, we only have 9 days left of the 30-day challenge, so hop on it. Get subscribed so you can hit the little bell button and you can follow us for those last 9 days. Day 31, Ashes, my short film, horror film, comes out, and it's Halloween, October. Come on, get on the bandwagon. I know you guys want to enjoy a horror film because nothing makes you feel better about yourself than watching some other people be completely idiotic. I'm not saying the people in my horror film are idiotic. I'm just saying that that's the majority of the thought process, the logic of horror films is in order for the horror to happen, we have to accept that people just aren't smart. And we all are smart, and we all are important. And that leads me to my last statement. Please show up for yourself. As I've said, I've been doing this to show up for myself, and I'm hoping that by me reminding you guys to show up for yourself, that you can find out like just how important you are, because it's kind of how I'm feeling, and like what it's reminding me of is I want to do videos, but I want to make sure I'm not just doing it for you guys. I want to make sure I'm doing it for me, because if I'm doing it for both you and me, then everyone's happy, you know? That's valid. I am treating you how I want to be treated. I'm showing up for you, so you'll show up for me, and that's how it works, the golden rule. Okay, that's it. Show up for yourself, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.